when you enter a room or enter a presence of other people, you bring something that literally no one else on the planet can bring. And if we can get our children to understand that, if we can get our children to know that when I'm not there, I am missed.
Welcome to Shoots and Roots, a practical video series that explores the joys and challenges of raising diverse kids through the different seasons of their lives.
So while we are on this journey of diversity in the garden, I'm so reminded that we talk about some trees providing fruit and some shrubs providing color, some having flowers. You know, there's beauty and there's food and there's vegetables, massive baby marrows, you know? Maybe just marrows.
Yeah.
But it also comes into diversity even in that way, where our kids have different purposes that God has marked out for each of them. You know, he says He's numbered our days. It wasn't just, 35 days. It was like, this is what needs to be done. It's also how you number it. Like if you think, you start to build a house, and you ask me, how long is it going to take? 3 weeks. Not just because I'm setting myself a target when it needs to be done. I've also gone and thought what needs to be achieved, what needs to be done. It's going to take that long. You know, estimated. That text speaks of so many different things. But each of our kids are so diverse in their personalities, in their temperaments, in their makeup, in what they need, how they process life, and also in what ultimately God would like for them to achieve in their lives. You know? Part of that is possibly being husbands and wives to husbands and wives, you know, like we're raising somebody's spouse.
Somebody else's parent.
Somebody else's parent.
Yeah.
And how different that's going to look, because there will be another thing thrown into that mix. We don't know how the spouses are being raised at the moment. You know? What's that going to look like? Preparing our kids to understand that there is diversity and it is not bad, it is just different. And to be like accepting of that while still being governed by the purposes of God for our lives, you know?
Yeah.
So how have we tackled this thing of God's purpose and design? The diverse, now just thinking about it, the diverseness of that. Like he says, the one will possibly go into the mission fields, and he says to the other one, will be where they are to make a difference in that area, in that generation. And then to another, that one will go and be a captain of many. And to this one will be a leader of industry. And the one will be a teacher of others. And because there is good at things, there will be greatness for others to walk in because of that destiny. And the one will be a defender of people because of the joy in their lives, you know, and that's also diverse. Why doesn't he just give each of our kids the same purpose? Makes it so easy for us. Okay, guys, when you hear this is what you do, this is how you react, this is what you're supposed to do, grow up in the purpose. And then gives, just looking at worship, the one the love for piano, the one the love for a bass guitar, the one the love for
a Cajun
drum. And thank God, up to now, no string or wind instruments.
No recorders. No recorders.
But how do we tackle this thing of the diversity that is present in our lives?
It's such I think this topic is one of the biggest topics for me in parenting, because we stand at a road and we have to make a decision of whether we're going to help our children to understand diversity within our families and within the world that they will live in. And I always say to our kids, especially when they come home with such comparison, like they don't, and even comparing themselves to one another within the household. Like I often say to them, your greatest superpower is just being you. When you walk into a room, no one brings your fingerprints, no one brings your personality, no one brings your thought process, no one brings your how you process. When you walk into a room, it's so unique. What you bring in that moment is so needed, whether you are just listening, whether you are just throwing the shade, or whether you are looking for the sunlight and you are in the spotlight and everyone is seeing you. When you enter a room or enter a presence of other people, you bring something that literally no one else on the planet can bring. And if we can get our children to understand that, if we can get our children to know that when I'm not there, I am missed.
There's a gap.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this lies so close to my heart because I think it's something that only maybe in the last 3 years I've really understood for myself, as even just as an adult. And it's weird because we grow up hearing it so much, but until you grasp it and understand it, it's so beautiful now for me to walk into a room and to know when I speak, no one speaks like I speak, no one laughs like I laugh, no one smiles like I smile, no one brings a perspective that I bring. And I think that is so important.
I think our kids sometimes, they don't often compare themselves with others of their peers, but they frequently compare themselves to one another.
Yes, they do.
And maybe one day when they're all older, they'll find this particular episode and fully grasp how each of them is so unique in our lives, for our lives. Like I think about how each of them brings a different degree of comfort when we're in a situation, you know?
Yeah.
That one that will come and sit on the armrest of the chair and just hug me when I'm sad, when life has disappointed me, you know? And the one that will go and say, come I'll take you for a milkshake.
Can I make you a cup of tea?
Can I make you a cup of tea?
And then that one will just confront you.
And the one that just cries with me.
Yeah, yeah.
When I just start talking, she just cries. And then the other one that says, hey, can I call you to order? Because sometimes we also need that, you know? But how easy it is that comparison even creeps into, maybe you're able to guard it out there, but then comparison creeps into the core.
Yeah, and the place where you should feel the safest.
Yeah.
And I think that is one of the enemy's greatest tactics, is if he can break this up, this family unit, he can break up what lies in their future. It can affect their families one day and their children one day. He's always looking for the ripple effect. He's always looking for the maximum destruction. And he will start right here. And if we don't always just keep going back. And you know what? With comparison, it often feels like you're going around the same mountain over and over again and like they're not getting it. But like with everything else in parenting, we just need to be consistent to take them back to the truth of who God made them to be.
I suppose you might be walking around the mountain, but you are summiting the summit. You know?
Yes,
you are going up higher. Just because it feels like it's the same circle you're going, it's not a waste.
You'll get
to Everest eventually, you know?
And isn't it a beautiful moment when you see, like it's almost like it's so unexpected when they get it, and you're like, oh wow, they got that today. Yeah. That penny dropped. That penny that I've been trying to make drop for the last 3 years has just dropped. And then,
but we have purposefully gone and explored God's purpose for each of our treasures, for each of our kids.
And we often remind them.
We frequently remind them, it's written down in a book.
Yeah.
And then we parent them with specific focus on shaping them for those purposes. Like, I love how God has also not just given us that this is what they're going to achieve, but these are the things you need to look out for that will distract them from it.
Like those warnings.
Yeah, I think about when Bob did Iris's dedication. He said she will see the good and the glory and the gold. And but also the eye might be what distracts her from it, you know? and to make her aware, not to be distracted by the shiny things of the world. You know?
And if I look at Iris, she's easily distracted by the shiny things of the world. It's something that's there.
So we have to find that purpose of God, and then take the courage to slay comparison, to go after it ruthlessly and say, this shall not stand because God did not give you the same purpose as that one. You have a unique purpose and you need to know this to go after this. Don't you dare. I don't know if I shared it before, but when the one came home and said, why can't I be more like my siblings? And I have to discipline them. I think I shared it one day. You know? Just to correct that. To be ruthless about that. You don't even have the right to compare yourself to your siblings because God made you so unique. You have to be ruthless as a parent to kill comparison because it breaks down the uniqueness and the diversity that there is in God. It breaks and it scratches at the purpose that God has, and it molds you into a fake representation of you, which I suppose steals the authentic self that God wants you to have. His authentic plan.
And the authentic self that those around you need, that even you are comparing yourself to, you know? I'm just thinking about how to bring them back to order with that. It's similar for me, if I can make the comparison. If I think of marriage, often you get into a place where there's conflict or there's something that we just don't sit the same on, and you're so confronted with it in the moment, and so this, and then I often find myself and I have to bring myself to attention and say, but what did I promise on my wedding day? And I actually have to go back to my wedding vows and say, I promise that I will stick through this for better or worse, in sickness and in health. And I call myself to that attention, and I'm like, okay, how am I going to stay true to that, even though we have this at hand? And I think we have to do the same for our children when we teach them about comparison, where we say to them, okay, this is where you are, and this is what you're comparing yourself to. But what did God say about you? This is what He said. And we bring them back to that place of, this is what you live up to. You don't live up to that or that or that.
I've also found what really disarms them in that cycle of comparing themselves is when you position yourself as, hey, you and I are on the same side here. We are fighting against the comparison that the enemy wants to bring in. We are not actively on the other side comparing you to. And that takes courage sometimes, because if I just think to be vulnerable, I think we all think how we are, and I think how I am is the best way.
Because
and
it's the way you know best.
The atmosphere where they compare themselves, even how they should react to how you are. Take yourself off that horse. Go down into the mud with them and say, hey buddy, where are you? Where are you? I'm not comparing you. You shouldn't be either. Who is doing this to you? Let's battle this thing together. So it takes a lot of vulnerability, it takes a lot of messy work, but it's worth it.
It is.
Now we're starting to see with the older ones how they're starting to walk into the purposes of God in small degree, but it's glimmers of light of what's going to come.
And I think the beauty of that is we're not forcing them to walk into it; they're choosing it.
I think on that score, we ask you to pray for us. We don't know if we do everything well, but we are pursuing God as we pursue our kids, as we pursue their purposes, as we live out ours. And that be your prayer as much as it's ours. Cool. Check you later.
Cheers.